big news here is that just more data, more processing power doesn't mean better models. There is a bigger issue here to solve.
Have we reached the pinnacle of AI's abilities? The AI industry has long been driven by the belief that bigger models and more data will lead to better performance. But as companies like OpenAI, Google, and Anthropic face mounting challenges that like rising costs, diminishing returns, a shortage of high quality training data, it's becoming clear that this approach has got its limits. These struggles are forcing the industry to reevaluate its strategies, focusing on refining existing models, exploring AI agents, which we've spoken about in a couple of episodes ago, and improving reasoning capabilities. So, Raj, from what it sounds like, we might have reached a cap, but now it's pushing us in a different direction.
Yeah, story of life, isn't it? In many ways, you keep growing, and at some point you hit the topmost point, and after that it's just the way down, right? So similar situation, I guess, with AI as well, where we see clearly that bigger models, more data, and just more hardware can't solve the problem of a clever AI. In fact, I believe Orion, which is the next step to O1, which you have currently in ChatGPT, the current model on ChatGPT paid version, is not better than what it's meant to be. It's not, the benchmarks were not hit, and clearly it's kind of a way down. And similarly, they've seen something similar with Gemini and Anthropic as well. So what they're saying is that they exhausted all the data which is available on the internet and beyond. So all data we can actually consume is all being fed to the AI already, and they can't find a way to make this better. A really big issue, obviously, but there are new novel approaches to solve this problem, and I'm sure we'll talk about that today.
Yeah. Sounds like they need a generative AI to run some ideas through.
That too, yes.
So now let's chat about the companies like OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. They're struggling, as you mentioned, to achieve breakthroughs. We've spoken about scaling up models, current AI development strategies, etc. What new approaches might be needed to push the field forward?
Well, as it happens, if we look at O1, the O1 model, which is a better version of 4.0. Again, I'm talking about jargons here. So O1 is the latest model which is available publicly from ChatGPT or OpenAI, and 4.0 is the previous model to the O1 model. We currently have O1 preview available as of 19 November 2024, and the O1 model is actually just using a thing called chain of thought, which is a way to keep going back and forth between the AI and its reasoning engine to get better answers. In the process, what happens really is that it takes a longer time to get the answers, but they are more accurate. They actually hit the mark in terms of what people expect the answers to be. In fact, I recommend that if you're doing something very critical in your business, you should always be using O1 as opposed to 4.0, because it's just so much better. So going back to what O1 is actually doing, in many ways you can think of O1 as a agent, or it has agentic workflows in many ways. And as we spoke before as well on the podcast, the O1 framework as well as the agentic framework is the future of AI, and that's how we see it. So we can't progress just by having a bigger model, for example. Can you have multiple steps, multiple tools within the AI engines to do different tasks for them? One of them is to have actually agents as part of your workflow. So making agents out of your existing O1 models or other tools you might have, which is the highest model you have within your armor, and then use that as a way to kind of go back and forth to create better answers for yourself. Because that is also a very good path to AGI, where you can actually be able to logically create, think, talk, a bit like a human system works, where you also, when we think of an answer, we think a few times in our heads, like, okay, is the answer correct? Is it wrong? Should I go and say the answer? Should I think of a different approach? Similarly, if the AI can do that as well, we're on to a winner.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to go a little bit off-piste here with my next question. We know that an AI neural network is modeled on a human brain, but there's a lot of undiscovered stuff in the human brain. I mean, it's still an ongoing field of research, etc. How are we going to be able to advance AI neural networks and towards this AGI model that we're aiming for when we don't even understand our own brains? There's that is if you're not even looking at the data and the expense and the hardware required. I mean, the fact that we don't even understand how a neural network works biologically, we can't necessarily replicate. So is that also going to pose a problem to advancing AI?
Potentially, but if you look at what's currently happening, is a lot of the applications of AI is also in biology as well. Where you're actually using AI to uncover new molecules, new processes, new medicines, new ways the way the brain works, for example, the heart works, how to solve major issues, for example. So AI is helping us uncover that as well as we go along this journey. My feeling is that while this is something that can happen in parallel, there are other opportunities as well. For example, one thing we noticed with open source work, for example, Mistral, which is one of the very popular open source large language model, they're really good. There's smaller models they have as well, just like Llama, and they do a very good job at a niche problem. Can you, for example, divide the big issue into smaller bits and distribute tasks based on what the task really is? Again, that also is in many ways a agentic workflow or agent workflow where you're going back and forth between different parts of the brain. You're going to think of left brain, right brain, for example. There's all different problems and to fix an issue or to give an answer or respond to something. So overall, I feel there are still a lot of undiscovered opportunities which we haven't really gone into. But the first steps in this process, like the O1, for example, in ChatGPT or OpenAI, showcases to us that's very promising. And then Anthropic launched their agent model, and the others as well who are launching theirs. So when we have I think it's called Operators, which is the upcoming agent for OpenAI or ChatGPT in January of next year, 2025, we should be able to see then some more opportunities from this. And I feel that is where the opportunity is in the short term.
Yeah, yeah. Let's flip back to the standard problems, I suppose you could call them. And one of those is obviously training data. And never in my life did I ever think I would hear that we have run out of data, because I mean, data is generated every single day in copious amounts. So the fact that we've run out of at least high quality training data for AI models is kind of mind blowing in itself. But how significant is this issue? Because AI can obviously generate synthetic data, and it's done so successfully in other industries. Could synthetic data or other innovations in this realm kind of provide a viable solution to this issue?
The answer would be potentially. It just depends upon how high quality the data is. If the data is not high quality, that synthetic data will collapse the model completely, and so we'll see a we'll be much worse off than what we were before with the previous models, for example. And you can't start all the way from scratch because you can't just go, oh, let me reverse back to it, because you don't know where the stuff started, right? That bug in the system or the decay of the model started, for example. So yeah, it's something to be very careful about, because the quality has to be very high. If it is just garbage synthetic data, it's going to just cause a lot of challenges for these big platforms. And what will happen is that in the process, ones who raise less money might be able to win the race. So to be very careful and to be able to maybe compartmentalize the different models would be very useful for them. And I believe they will be experimenting this in silos as well. So they will be looking at ways to kind of use real human data, synthetic data, maybe a combination of the two, and maybe see that they can get that data which is produced from AI to be checked by human beings, human in the loop, and make it better. Again, I'm sure they're trying all these different things, but overall, the big news here is that just more data, more processing power doesn't mean better models. There is a bigger issue here to solve.
Yeah. Let's speak about one of the biggest issues or the biggest challenges that these companies are facing, because AI development, the costs are skyrocketing, performance gains are becoming incremental. I mean, it's nothing can be exponential. It is going to taper off, and we'll probably see kind of like a flattening of the curve on the graph. But how do you think that this is going to affect the industry? Because if you're not having huge returns on investments, that could lead to a slowdown in innovation. Are we going to maybe see companies push towards more creative, cost-effective solutions, or are we going to just see kind of like a slowdown? Like I say, nothing can be exponential. So we are going to kind of have these periods of massive gains and then a slowdown and then potentially a massive gain again. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. I feel that there is going to be a interesting future. It's really hard to say what's going to happen. To be honest with you, I can't predict at the moment. There will be peaks and drops, and there will be growth and returns. I think a big problem which we're going to look to solve right now is energy as well. For example, the energy problem right now we have is a massive one. The consumption of energy at the moment, which you require to train your models, is significant, and there's already chatter about using nuclear power, for example, to power our servers, for instance. And also there is discussion about using better chips. For example, Amazon released their competitor to the NVIDIA chips, for instance. So there might be opportunities there as well. Overall, I think we are going to the time where there will be abundance of energy and abundance of processing power and intelligence through AI, and then it should be okay. But in the short term, the jumping off a cliff without knowing is a cliff on the other side or not, and we might just land flat for a few years, or for example, just go from strength to strength. So it's basically idea is wait and watch.
Yeah. It's interesting. As everything tech, it's going to be an interesting couple of months ahead of us. So that's pretty much a wrap on today's episode. What's your take? Are we nearing the limits of what current AI strategies can achieve, or is this just a temporary hurdle on the way to even greater breakthroughs? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please pop them in the comments. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe. Do please share as well. And thanks for listening. We will see you in the next episode.